I think from the point of view of the government of Mauritius, and it must be the same thing all across the continent, is that our infrastructure needs are very, very large. And generally speaking, our GDP base is very low. So the gap, the financing gap, tends to be very high. If we take the case of Mauritius, over the next 10 years, say, if we were to finance our infrastructure needs ourselves, we'd probably double our public sector debt. And we wouldn't want to do that. So we need to finance some of it internally and most of it from the private sector. So obviously, therefore, the first reason why we would turn to PPP is to provide capital so that we can proceed with our projects. The second reason we find is that sometimes projects are better implemented by people who are specialized in the sector. If you want to build an airport, you probably want to talk to people who are building airports every day. The same thing for our port. We tend to think that if you have a specialized port operator, you probably have better chance of getting it right. And also the procurement for the private sector, usually much faster than the procurement, at least for our government. So that is also a second reason. And the third thing is that often these are purely commercial ventures. And that commercial ventures are better operated by the private sector than the government. So there are a number of reasons why we turn to the private sector. But I think we should not underestimate the difficulties in getting it right. I mean, in Mauritius, we haven't really been successful yet. We are trying very hard with the ADB, with the World Bank, etc. And we've got one or two projects coming very nearly to fruition in the next few months. But one thing we found is that the question of capacity building is crucial. We don't have enough capacity in governments. We need to have the appropriate legislation, and that is, we've changed our legislation most, I think, 3 or 4 times, and it perhaps is still not perfect. We need to understand also the need of how to share the risk between the private sector and the government. One way of sharing risk perhaps is for the government to take on the financing risk and borrow the money and then pass it on to the private sector, and for the private sector to undertake the commercial risk of operating. But we found in Mauritius at least that this has the same effect on our public debt as anything else. So that sometimes it cannot be accessed in this way. Perhaps one way of sharing the risk is to guarantee the income. And in fact, for our road development project, also for the light railway, what the government of Mauritius will be doing is be guaranteeing from public funds part of the income for the project. So at least the private sector knows that some money is available, will be available as things go on. I must say also that since you're here, Mukhtar, that we are really counting on the World Bank, on the ADB, etc., to help us. I think this is one area where we need help all through. It's not only capacity building; it's to get throughout the entire process. We need help to get the framework right. For instance, we are now going for oil and gas exploration. We need to make sure that our framework is right, that the taxation is competitive, that it is transparent. There's a transparent process that we are sure that we get the right value for money for the taxpayer, and also that the environment is protected. These are very technical issues that we need people who know the business to help us out. So just to finish, perhaps, it's a tricky issue, PPPs. It sounds easier than it actually is. And to get it right, it's crucial. I mean, we've seen around everywhere around the world, governments get it wrong, and then it's the country that suffers. If you are too strict and you're overprotective of your assets, you don't find any bidder. Nobody comes up from the private sector to bid. If you are too lax, then you're losing money and you're wasting funds. So we need to get it right, and we need to get it done fast. And it's something that we feel we do need help all along the way, and we're grateful for the help that we're getting. Thank you very much.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.